Reese Castelluccio, step away from the door.
Yeah, what's going on? Store's not open yet?
This is Reese Castelluccio, a 6-year assistant manager at a Verizon authorized retailer in Kansas City. The man on your screen is about to learn that every single timestamp he thought was buried has been waiting for him in a federal database.
Yeah, the SIM swaps, 31 of them, all run from your employee ID after hours.
Okay, I know what this is about.
94,000 in crypto, 2 hours after each swap, same wallet every time.
I didn't think anyone was gonna, I knew eventually.
July 11th, 2023, 9:47 in the evening. A SIM swap is performed on the wireless account of a Kansas City software engineer from employee identification number FCI Leavenworth. 1 hour and 55 minutes later, 11:42 that same night, $94,000 in cryptocurrency transfers into a wallet registered offshore. The next morning, that software engineer would wake up to find that $4.2 million in Bitcoin he had held since 2014 was gone. The man behind employee identification number 4471 was a 6-year assistant manager at a Verizon authorized retailer in Kansas City, Missouri. By the time federal agents finished mapping his timestamps against the blockchain, he would be facing 22 federal counts and the loss of $14 million from 94 customers spread across 31 states. Before we continue, have you ever thought about what happens when someone takes control of your phone number? Drop a comment and let me know if you, or anyone you know, has ever been hit by a SIM swap. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. We expose this kind of betrayal every single week on this channel. His name is Reese Anthony Castelluccio. He was born on March 9, 1990, at Centerpoint Medical Center in Independence, Missouri, the second of 3 children in an Italian-American family that had been in the Kansas City metro area for 4 generations. His father, Anthony Castelluccio, owned a small auto body shop on Truman Road that had been started by Reese's grandfather in 1962. His mother, Linda Castelluccio, worked as a receptionist at a family dental practice in Blue Springs. The family lived in a modest brick ranch house on a quiet street where the same neighbors had been waving at each other for 20 years. Reese was the kind of kid who took things apart. By the time he was 8 years old, he had already disassembled and reassembled a VCR, a cordless phone, and the family's first desktop computer, though that last project ended with a trip to Best Buy and a quiet conversation between his parents about replacement costs. His 3rd grade teacher wrote in a parent conference report that he was exceptionally curious about how machines work and unusually patient when troubleshooting problems most students would abandon. His parents thought he might grow up to be an engineer. He attended Truman High School in Independence, where he ran on the cross-country team and worked weekends at his father's body shop, sweeping floors and learning how to mix paint. He graduated in 2008 in the middle of his class, and that fall he enrolled at Metropolitan Community College in Kansas City with the intention of pursuing an associate degree in computer information systems. He completed 3 semesters before the financial pressure of paying his own tuition became too much. His father offered to bring him on full-time at the body shop, but Reese told his mother privately that the smell of paint and the sound of compressors made him feel like he was disappearing. He wanted to work with people. He wanted a job where he came home clean. In April of 2010, at the age of 20, he applied for a sales position at a small wireless retailer in a strip mall on Bannister Road. The store sold prepaid plans and accessories, and the manager hired him on the spot for $9 an hour, plus commission. Within his first month, he was the top accessory seller. Within 6 months, he had been promoted to senior sales associate. His manager wrote that he was remarkably comfortable with technology and able to explain complex billing concepts to elderly customers without making them feel rushed or condescended to. That last quality, patience with confused customers, would follow him through every performance review for the next decade. In 2013, he moved to a Verizon authorized retailer location in Kansas City, Missouri, in the Northland neighborhood near Barry Road. The store was operated by a regional franchise group that ran 14 locations across Missouri, Kansas, and Iowa. He started as a sales representative making a base of $14 an hour with commission, and by 2015, he had been promoted to senior sales lead. By 2017, at age 27, he was named assistant manager of the Northland location. His annual salary at that time was $48,000, plus bonuses tied to store performance. The performance reviews from those early years describe a man on a steady upward trajectory. Phrases like consistently meets expectations, a calming presence on the sales floor, and demonstrates strong product knowledge across the entire wireless ecosystem appear repeatedly. One review from 2018 noted that he was the employee I would trust to close the store unsupervised, and that he had an instinct for detecting customer fraud attempts that has saved this store thousands of dollars. That last line would become one of the more bitter ironies of the eventual federal indictment. He met his future wife, Bianca Romero, at a friend's wedding in the summer of 2016. She was a paralegal at a personal injury firm downtown. They started dating that fall, moved in together in 2018, and got engaged on a beach in Cancun in February of 2020. Their wedding was scheduled for October of that year, but the pandemic forced them to postpone it twice before they finally married in a small backyard ceremony in May of 2021. By all accounts, they were a quiet, ordinary couple. They had a rescue dog named Otis. They went to Chiefs games. They took camping trips to Lake of the Ozarks. Bianca's mother described her son-in-law as the kind of man you don't have to worry about. In 2022, Reese and Bianca purchased their first home, a 3-bedroom split-level in Gladstone, just north of Kansas City, for $285,000. The down payment came from a combination of their savings and a gift from his parents. By the spring of 2023, they were talking about starting a family. That same spring, Reese performed his first unauthorized SIM swap. To understand what Reese did, you have to understand the system he exploited. A SIM swap is, in its legitimate form, one of the most routine procedures performed at any wireless retail location. A customer's old phone breaks. They buy a new one. The store associate transfers the phone number from the old SIM card to the new one, or, in the case of modern eSIM-equipped phones, generates a new digital identifier. The whole process takes less than 5 minutes. The customer walks out with a new phone, the same number, and no interruption to their service. Wireless carriers process millions of legitimate SIM swaps every year. But the same procedure, performed without the actual customer's knowledge, is one of the most powerful tools in the modern criminal toolkit. Because in 2023, a phone number was no longer just a phone number. It was the master key to almost every account a person owned. Email recovery codes, bank verification texts, social media login confirmations, and, most importantly for this story, cryptocurrency exchange two-factor authentication. If a criminal could take control of a target's phone number, even for 30 minutes, they could in many cases reset the password on the target's email account, then use that email account to reset the password on the target's cryptocurrency exchange account, then transfer every digital coin out of that account to a wallet they controlled, all before the victim noticed their phone had stopped working. The wireless industry knew this. By 2020, every major carrier had implemented security protocols specifically designed to prevent unauthorized SIM swaps. Customers were supposed to set personal identification numbers on their accounts. Stores were supposed to require photo identification matching the account. Employees were supposed to ask security questions. Every SIM swap was supposed to be logged with the employee identification number of the person who performed it, the time of day, the store location, and the reason given. The system had a fatal weakness, and Reese understood it better than almost anyone. The weakness was this: an assistant manager at an authorized retailer had override authority. If a customer claimed to have forgotten their PIN, an assistant manager could verify them through alternative means and proceed with the swap. If a piece of identification looked questionable, an assistant manager could approve it anyway. If the swap needed to be performed after hours, say because a customer was traveling, an assistant manager could log into the system from a backroom terminal and process it without a witness present. Every override was logged, but logs are only useful if someone actually reviews them. And in 2022, the Verizon fraud team's automated review system was configured to flag accounts with 3 or more SIM swaps in a 30-day window. Reese learned this threshold. He never came close to it from any single account. He spread his swaps across dozens of customers, performed them weeks apart, used different store terminals, and almost always processed them between 9 and 11 at night when he was the only employee on shift. For nearly 14 months, the automated system did not flag a single one. He had figured out exactly how invisible he could be. The first swap happened on April 17, 2023. The customer was a 37-year-old marketing executive named Daniel Huang, who had a Verizon account through his employer and lived in Overland Park, Kansas. According to investigators who later reconstructed the timeline, Reese received a telegram message at 8:34 that evening from a contact known only as Vex. The message contained Huang's full name, his Verizon account number, his date of birth, the last 4 digits of his social security number, and his current phone number. Reese was on shift alone that night, closing the store. At 9:51 p.m., 9 minutes before closing, he logged into the Verizon account management system using his employee identification, pulled up Huang's account, and initiated a SIM swap to a new physical SIM card that had been activated under a different customer's order earlier that week. At 11:43 p.m., a cryptocurrency wallet registered to an exchange in the Seychelles received a transfer of $1,000 in Ethereum from a wallet associated with the SIM swap network. The transfer was the agreed payment. By the time Daniel Huang woke up the next morning to discover his phone had no service, his Coinbase account had been emptied of $168,000 in various cryptocurrencies. Coinbase's fraud team reversed about 22,000 of it. The rest was gone. That was the template. Over the next 14 months, Reese would repeat it 93 more times. The operation worked like this. The Telegram contact, later identified by federal investigators as part of a network operating primarily out of Eastern Europe and the Philippines, would identify a target, usually through a combination of leaked database information and social engineering. The network would build a profile on the target that included everything needed to convince a wireless representative the call was legitimate. Then they would shop the swap to insiders at every major carrier. Reese was one of approximately 14 retail employees the network had recruited across the United States. He was, by all available evidence, one of their 3 or 4 most reliable. His payment was $1,000 per completed swap, paid in Ethereum or Bitcoin, transferred to a wallet he had set up using a privacy-focused exchange that did not require government identification. He believed this wallet was anonymous. It was not. Every transaction on every major blockchain is permanently recorded in a public ledger. The wallet itself might be anonymous, but the moment Reese moved cryptocurrency from that wallet to any exchange that did require identification, which he did repeatedly in order to convert his earnings into US dollars. He created a permanent forensic trail leading directly back to his name, his bank account, and the front door of the brick split level he and Bianca had purchased the year before. He used the money carefully at first. He paid down a credit card. He bought a used Toyota 4Runner for cash from a private seller and registered it in Bianca's name. He told her his year-end bonus had been larger than usual. By the summer of 2023, the swaps were happening twice a week. He had begun to relax. He upgraded the kitchen countertops. He bought a high-end mountain bike. He took Bianca to a resort in Tulum for her 30th birthday and paid for it from a brokerage account she had never seen before. When she asked about the source, he told her he had been investing in cryptocurrency on the side and that he had gotten lucky. She had no reason to disbelieve him. He had always been the careful one. The signs that something was wrong were there if anyone had been looking. The store's after-hours system access logs showed Reese signing in remotely an unusual number of times, far more than any other assistant manager in the franchise group. His swap-to-sale ratio was double the regional average. Several customers had called the store in the months following their swaps, asking why their accounts had been altered, and those calls had been routed to Reese, who had personally assured each of them that the changes were the result of routine network maintenance and that their accounts were fine. None of those calls were logged. But the franchise group's regional manager was a woman named Carla Reyes, who oversaw 14 stores from a small office in Lenexa. She had 8 assistant managers reporting to her, hundreds of customer escalations to handle every month, and no specific reason to look at Reese any harder than anyone else. He was, by every metric she could see, one of her best employees. He hit his sales numbers. His customer satisfaction scores were among the highest in the region. He had not received a single formal complaint in 3 years. Carla later told investigators she had been planning to recommend him for a store manager promotion in the second quarter of 2024. He was, in her words, the last person she would have suspected. The catalyst, when it came, did not come from inside the Verizon authorized retailer system at all. It came from the carrier itself. In May of 2024, Verizon's corporate fraud detection team rolled out an updated automated review tool. The new tool was designed to identify patterns that the old system could not. Instead of flagging only customers with multiple SIM swaps, it now flagged employee identification numbers that performed SIM swaps with statistical anomalies. Swaps performed disproportionately after business hours. Swaps performed across an unusually wide geographic range of customers. Swaps that were followed within days by customer-reported account fraud at the carrier level. On June 4, 2024, an analyst at Verizon's Fraud Operations Center in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, received an automated report flagging employee identification number 4471, the identification number assigned to Reese Castelluccio, as having performed 31 SIM swaps over the previous 14 months that matched the high-risk profile. Of those 31, 28 had been performed outside normal business hours. 26 involved customers who lived more than 50 miles from the Northland store. And 19 had been followed within 72 hours by formal account fraud reports filed by the affected customers. The analyst opened a case file and forwarded the report to Verizon's external fraud investigations team. That team contacted the United States Secret Service, which has primary jurisdiction over financial cybercrime under federal law. By June 11th, a Secret Service agent named Patrice Donnelly out of the Kansas City field office had been assigned the case. Within 48 hours of receiving the file, she had pulled the after-hours access logs for the Northland store, the surveillance footage from the dates of the flag swaps, and the personnel records for every employee at the location. What she saw on that surveillance footage matched the access logs precisely. On every single one of those 31 nights, Reese was the only employee in the building. He arrived at the store on his scheduled close shift, served customers normally, locked the front door at the posted closing time, and then, instead of completing his end-of-night procedures and going home, sat down at the back terminal, logged into the customer account management system, and performed a SIM swap on an account belonging to someone he had never met. The footage showed him glancing at his personal phone repeatedly during these sessions. It showed him taking photographs of the screen. It showed him, on 3 separate occasions, eating dinner at the back desk while waiting for confirmation that the swap had completed. Agent Donnelly did not arrest him immediately. She did not even contact the franchise group. Instead, she requested a federal subpoena for the cryptocurrency wallet records associated with the SIM swap network, a wallet that had been on the Secret Service's watch list for nearly 2 years in connection with a separate cryptocurrency theft investigation in Texas. The subpoena was granted on June 19th. Within 72 hours, the wallet's full transaction history was on her desk. The pattern was immediate and unmistakable. Within 2 hours of every single one of the 31 flagged SIM swaps, the network's wallet had transferred exactly $1,000 in cryptocurrency to a secondary wallet. That secondary wallet, when its outbound transactions were traced, had eventually moved its holdings to a Coinbase account. The Coinbase account was registered to Reese Castelluccio with his real name, his real social security number, his real home address in Gladstone, Missouri, and a profile photograph he had taken of himself in the parking lot of the Verizon store. He had been, the entire time, the easiest person in the entire investigation to find. Once the wallet trail had been confirmed, the case expanded outward in every direction. The Secret Service identified 94 total customers whose accounts had been compromised through swaps performed from Reese's employee identification. Of those 94, 89 had been victims of cryptocurrency theft. The total amount stolen across all victims was estimated by federal investigators at $14 million, with the actual figure likely higher because many cryptocurrency victims do not report their losses for fear of tax exposure or embarrassment. The largest single victim was a 34-year-old software engineer named Marcus Whitfield, who lived in a quiet neighborhood in southern Kansas City. Marcus had purchased Bitcoin in 2014 when it was trading at approximately $350 per coin. He had bought 12 Bitcoin in his original purchase and had added small amounts over the following years, eventually accumulating roughly 70 Bitcoin in total. He had never sold any of it. By July of 2023, his holdings were worth approximately $4.2 million. On the night of July 11, 2023, his phone stopped working at 9:48 p.m. He noticed at 10:15. He called his carrier from his wife's phone and was placed on hold for over an hour. By the time a representative answered, his Coinbase account had been emptied. Of the 70 Bitcoin he had held since 2014, 68 were transferred to a wallet he could not trace. Coinbase's fraud team recovered approximately $140,000. The rest, roughly $4.06 million, was gone. Investigators found additional evidence in 2 places. The first was Reese's personal phone, which was seized under warrant on July 8, 2024. The phone contained a telegram archive of nearly 2,000 messages between Reese and the contact Vex, dating back to March of 2023. The earliest messages in the archive showed Reese asking practical questions about how the swap process would work and how he would be paid. Later messages showed him negotiating his per-swap fee. He had successfully pushed it from an initial offer of $750 per swap up to $1,000 after demonstrating his reliability. One exchange in particular would later be entered into the trial record. Vex, June 14, 2023. Big one tonight, 4M plus target. Need this clean. Just send the file. I close at 9. We'll hit it before 10. Vex, June 14, 2023. $2,000 bonus if it lands. Send 3. I'm taking the risk. Vex, June 14, 2023. Done. The second source of evidence was Reese's home, which was searched on July 8, 2024, the same day his phone was seized. In a fireproof safe in the basement utility closet, agents recovered a laptop, a cold storage cryptocurrency hardware wallet, 2 burner phones, and a printed spreadsheet listing customer names, account numbers, swap dates, and payment amounts. The spreadsheet had been printed, by his wife Bianca's later admission, on the household printer in the home office. She had walked past it once in March of 2024 while it was printing and had glanced at it briefly. She had assumed it was a work document. She had not thought about it again until federal agents showed it to her across a kitchen table on the morning of his arrest. The cold storage wallet contained $94,000 in cryptocurrency. On the morning of July 8, 2024, at approximately 7:42 a.m., 4 Secret Service agents and 2 officers from the Kansas City Police Department arrived at the Castelluccio residence on Northeast 71st Street in Gladstone, Missouri. Reese was in the kitchen pouring coffee. He was wearing gym shorts and a faded Royals t-shirt. Bianca was in the bedroom getting ready for work. The dog was at the back door waiting to be let out. Agent Donnelly knocked. Reese opened the door. He looked at her, looked at the badge in her hand, looked at the 3 agents behind her, and let out a breath that one of the responding officers later described as like a man who had been holding it for 14 months. "Mr. Castelluccio?" "Yeah." "I think you know why we're here." He nodded once. He did not say a word for approximately 8 seconds. Then he said, very quietly, "Can I tell my wife?" They allowed him to walk back to the bedroom with 2 officers escorting him. Bianca was sitting on the edge of the bed. He told her, in her later words to a federal grand jury, that he had done something terrible at work and that he was going to be arrested. She asked him what he had done. He told her he could not explain it now. He told her he was sorry. He asked her to call his parents. He was placed in handcuffs in the front hallway at 7:51 a.m. As he was being walked out, Agent Donnelly asked him whether he wanted to make any statement before being transported. According to her report, he said, "I knew you were coming. I've known for about 2 weeks. I just didn't know which day." In the interview room at the Kansas City Secret Service field office, with his attorney present, he gave a full admission over the course of approximately 3 hours. He confirmed his use of the Telegram contact. He confirmed the per-swap payment structure. He confirmed the cold storage wallet. He confirmed the spreadsheet. When asked whether he had known what the swaps were being used for, he said yes. When asked whether he had known the customers would lose money, he said yes. When asked whether he had ever considered stopping, he was quiet for a long time before answering. "Once a month, I told myself I was going to stop. Every month I told myself the next one was the last one. And then the next one came, and I told myself the same thing." He was asked why he had done it. "Because I was good at it, and because nobody noticed." The federal grand jury indictment came down on August 1st, 2024. Reese was charged with 22 counts, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit computer fraud, 15 counts of aggravated identity theft under 18 U.S.C. Prems 1028A, 3 counts of money laundering, and 2 counts of unauthorized access to a protected computer. His attorney, a Kansas City defense lawyer named Teresa Vandermeer, attempted to negotiate a cooperation agreement in exchange for testimony against the broader SIM swap network. The negotiation lasted approximately 6 weeks. In the end, federal prosecutors offered a sentencing recommendation of 78 months in exchange for a full guilty plea, complete forfeiture of all assets traceable to the scheme, and ongoing cooperation with the international investigation into the Telegram-based network. Reese accepted on October 14, 2024. The sentencing hearing was held on February 27, 2025, before United States District Judge Helena Reichert in the Western District of Missouri. The courtroom was full. 23 of the 94 victims had traveled from across the country to attend. 6 of them gave victim impact statements. The most powerful of those statements came from Marcus Whitfield, the software engineer who had lost $4 million in Bitcoin he had held for nearly a decade. He stood at the lectern and spoke for approximately 11 minutes, often pausing to compose himself. He described what the Bitcoin had represented to him. Not wealth, but security. He had bought it as a young engineer fresh out of college, when he was making $42,000 a year and renting a basement apartment. He had held it through 3 crashes and 2 bull runs. He had planned to use it to pay for his daughter's college, to buy a house with a yard for her to grow up in, to help his parents retire. He had not sold a single coin in 9 years, he said, because he had wanted to leave something behind that mattered. What he stole from me wasn't money. It was 9 years of waiting. It was the only thing I had ever been patient about in my entire life. And he gave it away in 2 hours for $1,000. Judge Reichert spoke for nearly 15 minutes before pronouncing sentence. She addressed the question of trust at length. She said that what made this case different from a generic theft was not the dollar amount, but the position the defendant had occupied in his community. She said, "When a customer walks into a wireless store and hands over identification and an account number, they are placing in your hands the master key to every part of their digital life. You knew that. You understood the precise mechanism by which this trust could be exploited better than any of your victims did. You used your training, your access, and your reputation as a trusted retail manager to systematically betray 94 people over 14 months. You were not desperate. You were not coerced. You did this because, as you yourself told investigators, you were good at it and nobody was watching. The court is now watching." She sentenced him to 78 months in federal prison. She ordered restitution of $14 million, joint and several with co-conspirators if any are ever apprehended. She ordered 3 years of supervised release following incarceration and lifetime prohibition from any employment involving access to customer financial or personal identifying information. He was remanded into federal custody at the conclusion of the hearing. He was processed into the Federal Correctional Institution at Leavenworth, Kansas, on March 14, 2025. His projected release date is in October of 2030. His wife, Bianca, filed for divorce 4 months later. The split level in Gladstone was sold to satisfy the asset forfeiture order. His parents continue to operate the auto body shop on Truman Road, where his father still works 5 days a week at the age of 67. His mother no longer talks about him to her co-workers at the dental office. His name has been removed from the family Christmas card. In the weeks following his sentencing, the Verizon authorized retailer franchise group conducted a full audit of all override authorities granted to assistant managers across its 14 locations. 12 additional employees lost their override permissions. The franchise group implemented mandatory dual authorization for all after-hours SIM swaps. The carrier itself rolled out the same policy across its national authorized retailer network 6 months later. Marcus Whitfield never recovered the $4 million. He continues to work as a software engineer in Kansas City. His daughter started kindergarten in the fall of 2025. This case was calculated, but the case on the right-hand side of your screen is even more disturbing. Click it now.